Dude Spillings, back in the hot seat, coming to you from Austin, Texas. You must be hip, slick, and cool since you moved to Austin, Texas. Oh, wait, you were born and raised there and saw everybody come in and infiltrate your cool town. What is it like? I mean, come on, this place is now the world headquarters. Every time I send an email or hear from somebody, they say, I'm about to move to Austin, or I just did. The latest one being Dr. Paul Saladino.
Yeah, it's been great seeing Austin grow like it is and really make its mark on the map. When I was a kid, literally, I mean, people won't believe this, but when I was a kid, we would travel to see relatives and stuff, and I would tell people, "Yeah, I'm from Austin," and they would say, "Austin, where? Where is that?" Like they literally didn't know. And now we would even say, "Oh, it's the capital of Texas." And because of remember the TV show Dallas in the 80s, people would always respond, "Oh, I thought Dallas was the capital."
Right. Yeah. Like LA, San Francisco, San Diego. Oh, nope. Sacramento. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Very similar. Yeah.
Now it's not only the capital of Texas, but the capital of progressive health, ancestral health, paleo living. And it's kind of a utopia in many ways. But I know probably some of the characters changed. And I wonder if there's, a give and take here when you have that explosion of popularity, kind of like Boulder, or in smaller cases, Portland or Bend, Oregon, where, once upon a time, it was kind of like a hick town. And now all the cool people live there.
Yeah. I mean, to me, overall, it's a net positive. Because there are people like Saladino and who else recently moved here? I think Tim Ferriss moved here, and there's a number of people who have moved here in health and wellness. So to me, it's a net plus, and there's things like Paleo FX, which are amazing, and Keto FX and all the others. I mean, it's really fun to be here. And then on top of that, there's dozens of meetups and small groups and CrossFit boxes. There's CrossFit box there's as many as CrossFit boxes as there are Starbucks in Austin.
So you and I, man, we like to go at it over the email, phone, text, and stay abreast of all the cool things. You're my go-to guy for so many things because you have the aptitude to distill that research and then put it into action with your personal life. So the All Things Health with Dude Spillings is underway, and we have so many cool things to talk about from the past months of engagement, but those past months also happened to be the time of the quarantine of the planet. And so I thought we should start there with how you've taken this opportunity to become a fitness freak and implement this micro workouts concept, being working at home and being locked without the travel and the usual hectic life. It's gone pretty well.
Yeah, it's been really cool for me because I've been able to, I would say like the wellness wisdom that you get from people in the space about being an office worker is that, oh, you need to get up and move every hour, right?
Sure.
And that's when you're in an office, like normally my office is in a 12-story office building in the Domain, and in that setting where I'm working with a bunch of other people, and I'm in a row of 15 other desks, and on the other side is another row of 15 desks, and when you're in that type of setting, if you're gonna get up and move every hour, you're gonna walk around the floor, right? Maybe you're gonna walk, like I walk the flight of stairs every once in a while, right? But I'm not going to swing kettlebells, and I'm not going to do pull-ups, and So now being at home, I realized, right, while I'm quarantined and working from home, I can finally do what I've always wanted to do, which is actually do a micro workout every hour. And so it took me a while to sort of refine what I'm doing. So I set my timer on my phone for an hour countdown. And then every hour, I just do 30 push-ups, 10 pull-ups. I've got the X3 bar, so I either do the banded deadlifts or squats. I kind of mix that up. And maybe some curls or tricep stuff. And, that takes 5-6 minutes. It doesn't take any time, but it's a much better workout than, walking around the floor every hour. And when you accumulate that over the day, right, I'm now, and by the way, you also see like, the incremental changes are super tangible when you're like, you can see your workout progress when you work out daily. When you work out hourly, you make gains, man. And I really kind of modeled the whole thing over Pavel Tsatsouline's Grease the Groove philosophy. So if listeners want more information on that, you can just Google Pavel and Grease the Groove. And his whole theory is that instead of doing a workout 3 days a week where let's just take chin-ups, for example, right? So most people, let's say you can do 8 to 10 pull-ups, that's your max, right? So instead of doing 3 sets of 8 to 10, or let's just for easy, 3 sets of 10, right? So that's 30 chin-ups in a day. You do that 3 times a week. That's 90 chin-ups for the week. He says, cut it down to 5. So you're only doing half your maximum, but do them several times throughout the day, right? So now if you're doing a set of 5, 8 times a day, that's 40 a day on a 5-day work week is 200 chin-ups.
Instead of 90.
Right.
And instead of 90, where that 90 is arguably going to trash you more than the bits and pieces approach. And what's interesting to me is it seems like we have some critical mass here, because Pavel's been talking about this stuff. His associate, Dr. Craig Marker, with his landmark post Hit versus Hurt, talking about the destructive effects of these long, exhausting workouts. And then we were sharing that video from Firas Zahabi, the famed MMA trainer, who was talking on Joe Rogan about how he doesn't want his athletes ever getting sore. Dr. Phil Maffetone said the exact same thing. So it seems like we're transitioning away from this fitness model of decades long, which has been go into the sweat house, the house of pain, and do your thing with your badass instructor or your community atmosphere and the rah-rah, and you go to CrossFit and people are cheering for the person as they do more reps than they've ever done before, which is, not to throw that all out, but the idea that fitness can be a kinder, gentler approach seems to be one of the greatest breakthroughs I've seen in my lifetime in the fitness scene, because it eliminates that huge risk of breakdown, burnout, illness, and injury that anyone who's had any serious ambitions in fitness has suffered from at one point or another.
Totally. And I've witnessed this firsthand now. We've been quarantined for, I think, going on 12 weeks now. It's at least 10.
Yeah, middle of March.
Yeah.
And we're recording here in the middle of May, so end of May, sorry.
Yeah. Well, they told us at Verbo it was like 8 weeks, and that was just several weeks ago. So it's been a while.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point is, like, over this time period, I haven't been sore. Like I haven't been sore. And so I mentioned I do 30 push-ups every hour. I didn't start at 30, right? I started at 20.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to bump it up to 25 and then to 30. And at lunch, so another thing I'm doing, I've seen all these studies referenced about vitamin D and immunity. And I think Dr. Rhonda Patrick actually mentioned this on Joe Rogan a few days ago, that there's this association between high vitamin D and strong immunity. And so since I've been at home, one of the things I've been doing at lunch is I take a lap around my apartment complex with my shirt off and get vitamin D here in the strong Texas sun. And every lap that I make, I'll do 30 push-ups and 15 squat jumps. And let me tell you, when I first started doing squat jumps, man, I was so sore the next day because I never do those. So that's definitely added a bonus there. But you know, when I started doing those, I was actually only doing 15 push-ups every lap, and now I'm up to 30, and with virtually no pain. Now the squat jumps, there was pain because I had never been doing them.
Right. I think the muscle soreness comes from doing anything unfamiliar is going to generate a little soreness, and then from the eccentric nature of certain movements, right? Those are the two sources of muscle soreness.
Yeah.
And boy, this has been such an eye-opener for me because I get sore so frequently lifting heavy weights or doing sprint workouts. And now, you know, studying the message that these great people are putting out and seeing the results that people like you are getting, I'm seeing the beauty of kind of toning down that competitive instinct and that desire to go and kick ass and high five yourself and write down in your log something impressive that you just achieved, in favor of kind of being more gentle and more consistent, so that you don't have these long periods. Like I can look back in my training log from running days, triathlon, and even as a old man masters athlete and avid speed golfer and high jumper, you know, there's blank periods where I didn't do deadlifting for 9 days because I strained my glute doing something like a sprint workout because I went crazy. And when you have those fall offs, then building back up, you get sore again and you're dealing with more soreness. So listeners have heard me talk about my morning routine, which it started out as a 12-minute core exercises and leg flexibility mobility drills. But now I keep adding on new things to the extent that it's extending out to like 30, 40, 45 minutes of just sequential movements with the mini bands now, of course, the baseline stretching routine. And so that, like you wrote in your email, I should quote you here because you said, your idea here is how much work can your body do and remain in that calm, parasympathetic, restful state rather than kicking into sympathetic. The best example would be if I, listener, if I came over to your house right now, put a gun to your head and said, hey, we're going to run a marathon. Guess what? You would kick into sympathetic state and you would cross the finish line of a marathon no matter what, but it would be at extreme cost. But how much can you do as sort of your baseline where it's nothing? The Carol Fit bike that we've talked about, their advertising on their website has the guy doing the 8-minute workout in a suit because their workout template is 8 minutes where you do a couple big sprints, you cool down, and you don't even sweat because 8 minutes is not long enough to break a sweat. And so if you can kind of, I guess, like you wrote, you know, stay under the radar, but achieve these, you know, cumulative fitness goals, boy, here's your the end of dude's normal day: 350 push-ups, 100 pull-ups, 150 jump squats, 50 deadlifts, and walking 2 miles. I guess that's a few trips around the complex.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's big time. I mean, you're timesing that by 5 or 6 or 7. It's you must have had some great fitness breakthroughs in the last few months.
Well, I mean, no contests to actually test them, you know, but
right. Yeah. You're undefeated throughout the quarantine. Yeah.
But I will say, I don't know if I've covered on the podcast before, even told you in person before, but I have a torn labrum in my right shoulder. And I've had that since 2013. And I'm supposed to actually supposed to have surgery on it in 2013 and went to Pebble Beach instead.
But fair excuse.
Right. But a good friend of mine talked me out of the surgery and said, you should just do PT and massage therapy and stuff until you actually really need the surgery. And so it's been 7 years. And because I think it's because of the pull-ups, actually. because I'm doing all these pull-ups, I actually have a lot less shoulder pain now. And on that note, about how much rest can you do and stay parasympathetic, I wrote that to you because I knew that you would know what that meant. I was describing this to someone the other day, and the way I said it was, how much work can you do at rest, right? So if you think about it primally, right? Our primal hunter-gatherer ancestors, their idea of rest was really kind of like wandering around, foraging for food and climbing up on top of rocks and maybe climbing trees to get a piece of fruit, So rest for them was significantly more strenuous than sitting at a desk in front of a computer. So I'm kind of like, if you can raise that minimum level of work that you're doing when you're at rest, it just makes you that much more resilient.
Well, if you extend that out to the world of elite athletics, and from my experience on the triathlon circuit, an easy day for the leading athletes would be something that's a phenomenal achievement to the recreational enthusiasts. But it was literally a recovery or a moderate day to go and ride the bike 50 miles, swim 2 miles, and run an easy 6 at the proper heart rates. And I think, I guess now they're calling it polarized training, where you're trying to not drift into these middle ground where the day was kind of tough and then tomorrow's kind of tough and then the next day is kind of tough. So to keep that workout stimulus low, I feel like that's where the magic is that when you do go out and bust loose, when there's a new event on the calendar, or you have a really distinct workout effort where you're going to the CrossFit class or whatever it is that you like to do, you're going to launch from this much higher platform, because now, the new normal is 350 push-ups a day. You're not going to be super sore when you go do your adventure race.
Right. Just so the key is, though, to that you do, people hear things like Maffetone and Grease the Groove, and they think, oh, those are wimpy, easy workouts, right? But the key is, you do want to kind of push yourself just ever so incrementally, right? So, I didn't start out doing 350 push-ups a day, right? I started out doing more like 150.
Which at the time was a pretty good challenge.
Yeah.
It's more than you did in 2014 or whenever you weren't doing this stuff.
Right. Yeah. And so, it's, when we're talking about doing, a quote unquote easy workout, we're not saying don't make gains, right? It's just that the gains don't come like gangbusters like they do when you're out, doing your max every other week.
Yeah, that's a good distinction, because I will now reflect on my morning routine. Of course, I'm locked into this mode. I haven't missed it in 3.5 years, but it ain't easy. And it keeps me honest, because I wake up in the morning and I know I got to go hit these sequences. And every time it's pretty much of a challenge. I mean, the core is activated for like 12 minutes straight, and at the end you're burning. And I'm familiar with it every single morning. But I think it's been criticized or taken out misinterpreted in the past, where the fitness dogma that you have to keep mixing things up and doing things different. Otherwise, your muscles will get used to it and it's no longer a challenge. Well, guess what? If you could do 350 push-ups, 100 pull-ups, 150 jump squats every day for the rest of your life, I don't think you're going to be complaining. And I think that's going to be an all-around double thumbs up. So this constant quest to do better and to one-up your last workout. And I'm the first person to admit that, man, I get so excited when I go do a high jump session, or I'm training for the 400 meters, and I want to get a faster time than my previous workout. And my mindset's always been, well, that's how you improve. But now we need to call that into question and realize that just being patient and consistent over time may predict improvement better than trying to be a badass and set PRs, every third time that you go into the gym.
Yeah, the key word that I think you said there is patience. And I think that's something that Americans in general kind of need to work on. I mean, we're all kind of trained by marketing and culture to that, you need to fix right now for whatever's ailing you. If you don't like your car, just go buy a new one. We got 0% financing. You get it today. Same with, you go to the doctor and like, your back is sore. Let's just shoot up with cortisol. That'll make it feel better right away, right? Don't worry about the exercises and strengthening your core and making everything stronger. Just shoot it up and you'll feel great, And so we're kind of, that's what that movie, I don't know if you've seen that movie, The Magic Pill on Netflix.
It's on my list, man.
But that's basically what it's about. Is like everyone wants the magic pill.
Oh,
no patience.
Yeah. Don't like your town? Move to Austin. Everything will be wonderful there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I guess the lack of patience. I'm psychoanalyzing myself since I'm on with Dude Spellings, who's always a big help there. But when I was a triathlete, I loved competing. I loved traveling. I loved having this compelling goal. But I can't say I was in love with the all-day monotonous training in the 3 events, swim, bike, run. So I reference a lot of times where I wanted to find a hack or a shortcut to get better quickly, rather than just being patient and being content to pedal around at the proper heart rates. I wanted to go do an epic mountain climb of 8 hours and then come home through the door, put a check mark in my training log, and say that now I'm a better cyclist for forevermore. And that's a really high risk approach. And I think forget about the elite consequences, but for the average person who has that well-intentioned trip to the gym to sign up and get into a program and get their chart from their trainer and go through these motions. But by and large, they're getting pushed too hard. And then we're sitting in an office for 10 hours a day instead of getting up and taking 2 flights of stairs like Dude does, even when you're in the office building.
Yeah. And I would add to that, people's own motivation, right? So a lot of times when people, are starting a fitness program, right? They're coming from a place where they're unhappy about their fitness level. So they're like super motivated to go out and like hammer hard, right? Oh, I'm really tired of this extra weight. I'm going to hammer out. I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to be thin in no time. The faster and harder I work out, the thinner I'm going to be. And it's just a recipe for your favorite cliche. Throw it in here now. Burnout. Say it. Go ahead.
Breakdown, burnout, illness, and injury.
Yes.
Bam, 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 bam. Okay. Well, speaking of that, if we make a transition into the diet aspect, I want to ask you what you think of Jason Fung's assertion, which has been sitting with me for many weeks now. I can't stop thinking about it. But in his book, The Obesity Code, he says that excess body fat is 95% a consequence of your insulin production rather than your activity level or any other factors. Mark Sisson has long said that body composition is 80% diet and 20% lifestyle, being exercise, sleep, stress levels, things like that. And it's kind of a mind-blowing insight to think of how big those numbers are when so many of us are socialized to think, I'm getting a little extra, I'm getting a little thick, I need to go work out more, is the immediate association there, which is now arguably being completely challenged and refuted.
Oh, I think it's totally within the realm of reason to say that. And if you listen to Gary Tops, he's got some great talks on YouTube, and he covers this in his book, Why We Get Fat. And his hypothesis is that hormones is what determines how you grow, not your diet. And in my own personal experience, I think that's totally true. As you know, last year I did the Grand Canyon Run Duran Duran, right? So I was running, leading up to that, I was running 80 miles a week. Oof. And yeah. And so that, and really I ran it in May, almost exactly a year ago. And I really started ramping up my miles in January, right? So from January to May, I was doing tons and tons and tons of miles, right? Burning tons of calories. And pretty much after that is when I got divorced, and my life changed quite dramatically. And then we sold our house and moved and everything. So all my training just really stopped. Now, I have not really changed my diet, hardly at all, but I haven't gained any weight.
You haven't gained any weight from the guy who was on the south rim of the Grand Canyon facing 50 miles in top shape? You're the same body composition now?
Well, actually, from all the push-ups and pull-ups, I'm probably more muscular, right? So I probably am a little heavier, but I don't measure my body fat, but I don't look, when I look in the mirror, I don't look like I have more body fat.
So listeners, what's happening here is this compensation theory, where that dude who was running 80 miles a week was eating more food as a consequence because you spiked your appetite because you were burning so many calories.
Yeah, I was eating a little more because just when I was hungry, but overall, yeah, I would say quantities might have changed a little bit, but overall, like what I'm eating hasn't changed, right? I'm still eating paleo. I'm still eating lots of steak, lots of
Texas
fish,
barbecue,
I had
pale ale
today
from
for
Austin,
lunch.
microbrewery.
Yeah.
Viewers on YouTube can see that. Oh,
You know,
so that's interesting. I mean, we're the same book, The Obesity Code, was citing research that even if you increase your caloric intake, your body's going to find ways to adjust, like thermic effect, where you're running a little bit hotter temperature to where you burn more calories. So,
yeah.
it's sort of interesting to think about. Here's all the different variables: eat less, exercise more, and it doesn't work. Eat more, exercise less, probably not a big deal. It's going to be hard to add body fat unless you change your macronutrients and start eating more carbs, producing more insulin.
Yeah, I forget where I saw this, but there was I know where I saw this. It was in a PBS show that was on recently called, I forget, The Story of Fat or something like that. But it was on just a month ago. And they actually cited this study where these guys went and studied, like in the field, went to the Hadza in Africa, the Hadza tribe, one of the last known modern hunter-gatherer tribes. Like, they still live like people did 10,000 years ago. And they studied these people and measured what they ate and tried to see like what their daily caloric intake was. Now, the hypothesis before they went was that, these obese Americans are eating 2,500 to 3,000 calories a day, and therefore, and not doing the amazing amount of physical exertion that a hunter-gatherer would do. Therefore, that's why they're fat. But what they found out was, like, holy crap, the Hadza are actually eating about 2,500 calories a day, even though they're walking 12 miles a day to forage and hunt. But they weren't gaining weight they weren't, as heavy as Americans, but they were able to do tons more work because of the compensation theory that you're talking about, right? They just, because their body demands it, they're just that much more efficient with their calories that they do have.
Well, we're also bumping up against this upper limit of caloric expenditure no matter what. And so if you apply this compensation theory to the classic example of the athlete who wakes up on Saturday morning and does a hard 60-mile bike ride, and then they come home and they hang out on the couch and they watch sports, or they watch tapes of previous sporting events in the case of present time, but their metabolic rate goes down, and their level of laziness goes up, and their caloric expenditure goes up in compensation for that badass 60-mile bike ride in the hills. And it's sort of an even swap for, let's say, the same person waking up and getting the call to go do some mild gardening in the yard, walk the dog through the park for a couple miles, eat a reasonable amount of food rather than pound the pints of Ben and Jerry's after the 60-mile bike ride. And then it all comes out in the wash where it's an even caloric expenditure from the mildly active day versus the crazy ass workout that has that compensatory effect of making you feel like a blob. And I can totally relate to that from, triathlon training. The agenda was just crazy all day with these hours and hours of workouts. But if I wasn't working out, I guarantee you I was horizontal or near horizontal for the 9 years of my life that I raced on the pro circuit. And so that one's kind of a mind blower too, because I think we can all reference how the more active you are with whatever distinct thing you did, ran the marathon,
Right.
did the bike ride, you come home and you're dead to the world. And so the Hadza are doing like mild, low level activity throughout the day, and then, resting more, sleeping more, all those kind of things.
Yeah, and to our point that we were talking about earlier, right? Their at rest state is all this mild work all day long of walking however many miles they do to gather food.
So I guess the takeaway insight is that maybe we should prioritize these micro workouts, this objective to keep moving throughout the day and avoid those periods of stillness, over and above the obligation to go in there and sweat like crazy and push yourself to the extent of getting sore. Whereas the world's leading fitness experts are now saying don't get sore. I'm listening very carefully to that and trying to figure out how to solve this equation rather than continuing to battle, because muscle soreness is basically, it's a bad sign. It's a sign that you overdid it.
Yeah, I think that, so sort of like a one-liner takeaway, I think you could say is, you want to get to the point where you can do a whole lot of work and not be sore, right?
And there's
So,
you just reminded me of Kipchoge.
oh yeah,
The greatest endurance athlete, the greatest distance runner the planet's ever seen, the guy that broke 2 hours in the marathon. And he published his training log on the internet. So the tech geeks could scrutinize the pace and make calculations on percentage of maximum VO2 max. And it turns out this guy is just a machine who's motoring along week in and week out, but always well within his capabilities. So he's never trashing himself, even though he's trying to push the barriers of human performance to a place that no one's ever been, and breaking 2 hours in the marathon, the greatest example. He's always within himself, and he's never doing what most recreational or competitive runners around America are doing routinely, which is to get that overuse shin splints or the sciatica flaring up again, or just the fatigue and the burnout from getting in the wrong pack on the Tuesday night running group and trashing yourself. So boy, these are pretty strong messages that we can have that kinder, gentler approach, to quote someone from Austin, and succeed with our fitness goals. And then in your case, forget it. We've just been talking about fitness and fitness progress, but the fact that you get your butt up from your desk and do something every hour. I mean, even if it was something as simple as walking Sadie around the block and not doing any athletic things, you're getting a huge benefit in fat metabolism, cognitive performance when you do sit back down at your computer, and there's tons of research to validate that too.
yeah, that's a great point. And then added benefit from that too is, going outside and getting some natural sunlight and limiting the blue light exposure from the computer, and all of that also, I think, adds quite a bit of health benefits.
Okay, you made another transition, since those of us watching on YouTube see this wonderful orange reddish glow to Dude Spellings coming
Yeah,
from his dope indoor lighting system. So you went in there and changed out the typical bulbs that we illuminate our indoor life with, So maybe we can talk a little bit about that topic on the basic level to get people inspired to, go grab a Himalayan salt lamp or switch out the white light bulbs with the orange ones, and why that's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot to this. So I'm going to try to hit a lot of the different points. So the basics, most people probably know, especially if they're into the primal lifestyle. So the basic is that the way the human body's supposed to work is that in the morning, you wake up and see the sunshine, and there's blue light in that sunshine. Morning sunlight has the highest amount of blue light. The blue light hits your eyes and sends a signal to your brain to turn off melatonin, the sleep hormone, and turn on cortisol to wake you up a little bit. Now, interestingly, and where this fits in with Jason Fung, is that blue light by itself without food raises blood sugar, right? And they think this is all documented. You check it out. It's if you want to Google it, it's called the dawn phenomenon. But they think that the reason that this happens, right, is if you're an early hunter-gatherer and you wake up and you're hungry, you need a little bit of blood sugar to get going to get your next meal, right? That's how it's supposed to work. But the problem today is that modern indoor lighting and screens have 4 times more blue light than morning sunlight. So we're all staring at these screens all day long and underneath these indoor lights. And we are not only screwing up our cortisol and melatonin balance, right? And you're not making enough melatonin later in the day for proper sleep, but you're also raising blood sugar, right? And that's why the modern office setting with all these indoor fluorescent lights, dual monitors at every workstation, and the high carb snack machine is so brutal, right? It's because you're already raising the blood sugar with the blue light, and then the only food that you really have is some crappy stuff that's going to raise your blood sugar even higher.
Blood sugar, you raise insulin.
Yep.
You get fat.
Yep.
You get
Absolutely.
tired, cranky, all that stuff.
Yep.
Independent of your dietary choices, and then you mentioned the vending machine as exacerbating, but even without that, the light is such a big problem for metabolic function.
Yeah. So another thing that is quite fascinating is that blue light and EMF actually liberate vitamin A, retinol, and what that does is it lowers your B vitamins.
Oof.
And I believe this is really why everyone is testing positive for the MTHFR polymorphism that's supposed to, the way that they measure this a lot of times is they measure either your vitamin B levels or your homocysteine. And if your vitamin B is low or your homocysteine is high, then they conclude that you have this methylation problem and that you can't metabolize or make methylated B vitamins, right?
Methylation is the chemical reactions that is, for example, making the nutrient that you need. Is that how you would describe that?
I'm not a chemist and I'm terrible at describing this stuff, but the way that I understand it is that, so a methyl group is it's a description of a specific molecule in the body. I forget exactly what it is. It's a certain number of carbons and hydrogens and so on. But this methyl group in the body is used for lots of different processes. And one of the processes it's used for is for turning folate into methylfolate. And the body, and that they call the methylfolate the active form of the B vitamin. And that's the one that your body actually uses, right? And vitamin A, when vitamin A is liberated in the body, it it destroys methyl B. And so I think that's why everybody's showing up at the functional medicine doctor's offices with low B and high homocysteine, and then everybody is getting prescribed these methyl B vitamins. It's because of all the blue light and the non-native EMF that we're exposed to. Yeah.
Right. So if we wanted to take some corrective action here, and to clarify, when we're talking about blue light, and people throw that term around so much, I finally looked it up because I'm like, well, it's white, isn't it? It's white out of a white light bulb or a white screen when you're blasting your eyes at night. But blue is the most easily scattered spectrum on the UV spectrum, and that's why the ocean looks blue, Lake Tahoe looks blue, the sky looks blue, because that's what scatters the easiest of all the different wavelengths, and some of them are invisible, right? But then when we get to the orange, red, yellow, these wavelengths are less offensive to our hormonal mechanisms because they don't have that damaging potential that mimic direct sunlight during the day when it's supposed to be nighttime.
Well, so what you're really referencing there is something called the photoelectric effect, which is something that Einstein discovered, and really all it says is that high energy light, which blue light would qualify, is able to interact with electrons. And that's really how all of this processes happen in the body, is that the high energy blue light fiddles with the electrons and the bonds in the body, and it can actually break down some of the bonds in some of these vitamins and minerals and stuff that you need, and that's why it affects you.
So the morning sunlight is ideal because we get the hormonal boost, the energy boost, the blood sugar boost, which is a desirable, the cortisol spike is desirable upon the rising of the sun, because that's going to tee us up for a busy day. The serotonin goes up to the mood elevating hormone in the morning in response to direct sunlight, ideally, or one of those fake bulbs you can get if you're in Scandinavia all winter long, which are highly effective, right? The artificial UV enhanced blue light machines to help with seasonal affective disorder. But for most of us, getting out, exposing our eyeballs to direct sunlight kicks off a busy, healthy, productive day until then we start getting into trouble.
Well, I mean, the beauty of creation is really magnificent. So all this stuff that you're talking about is true. But one of the things that's so fascinating is that so you need melatonin to go to sleep, right? And everyone thinks that you make melatonin at night. You don't make melatonin at night. You release melatonin at night. Melatonin is actually made from serotonin, and serotonin is made when you are exposed to sunlight. So you're actually making the building blocks for the melatonin that's going to put you to sleep when you're in the sunlight in the daytime. It's pretty fascinating.
So the serotonin is a precursor to melatonin.
Right.
Get that serotonin boost in the daytime. Now I'm referencing Dr. Robert Lustig's book, The Hacking of the American Mind, where he talks about how our intense pleasure-seeking modern life is hitting the dopamine pathways in the brain to the extent that our pursuit of instant gratification floods those dopamine pathways and down regulates the serotonin pathways, so that we don't even have the ability to sustain an elevated mood and a sense of well-being, just a sense of calmness and well-being, because we're going for the quick hits that dopamine provides. This is kind of an aside, but it's just fascinating to me because he's listing the key dopamine triggers are hyperconnectivity, especially social media, sugar, alcohol, street drugs, prescription antidepressants, internet porn, and video games are a particularly disturbing combo there, because they just flood the young human with instant gratification to the extent that they lose their drive and desire to to pursue challenges and persevere through difficulties, which are serotonin boosting activities, which is sort of equated with a life well lived, a life of deep meaning and contentment. And so when we're
Well,
flooded with dopamine, we're like zombies walking around.
yeah, and if you have listened to Jordan Peterson and his talk about the dominance hierarchy, and how it's your level of serotonin that determines where you are in the dominance hierarchy.
Oh,
Right. And so, yeah, I mean, the thing that you just noticed is pretty amazing, is that we're trading dopamine or we're trading serotonin for dopamine, right? And it's a much less sustainable way to go about it. Now, another tiny aside there, one interesting thing in there, you mentioned street drugs raise dopamine, and most of them do, but one that doesn't is actually weed, right? Weed is not dopaminergic. Weed works on the cannabinoid system and not the dopamine system. I'm not advocating be a pothead, but that's a different one.
That's our nice little aside there, and then back to the circadian rhythm.
Yeah, let me get back to the blue light here for a second. So another big distinction between sunlight and indoor lighting is that, you get the full spectrum outdoors, and people always ask me, like, oh, well, if I'm getting blue light outside, why is it so wrong to get the blue light on my screens, right? And there's a few reasons why. One is indoor lighting, you're getting 4 times more blue light. 2, outdoors, you're getting the full spectrum, so you're getting more than just blue. And part of that is that 42% of sunlight is infrared, right? So that's in the red spectrum. Now, infrared, people probably know, is heat, right? That's why infrared saunas are hot. And even if you can't see red light, if there's heat there, that's infrared, right? So even in a dry sauna like your barrel sauna, that heat that comes out of there, that's infrared light. But the thing that happens in nature that doesn't happen on your screen is this balance of blue and red. And the blue does some things and the red does other things, right? And one of the things that we now know about the infrared is that certain frequencies of infrared actually make ATP, right? So the certain wavelengths of infrared, when it hits the 5th cytochrome in the mitochondria, it makes it spin faster and make more ATP. And this is 100% verifiable by many different studies. So likely one of the mitigating factors when you're outside from getting the blue light and having your methylation affected or whatever, is that you have this increase in ATP production to make up for that, right? And you're not getting that when you're inside. Another interesting little aside is, everyone knows that we now have this, in most places we have laws that require the use of, quote, high efficiency light bulbs. Well, the reason that they're high efficiency is because they take out the heat, right? So they, if you remember back in the olden days, like when we were kids, if a light bulb in a lamp just burned out and you go to replace it with your hand, you're gonna burn your hand, right? But with the newer light bulbs that don't have the heat, right? As soon as you turn that light bulb off, you can touch it and it's not hot.
Oh, I didn't know that. I never touch them because I don't want to burn my hand.
Yeah,
that's true, huh? Like the LED, long lasting, whatever it says on the box. These are they stay cool.
Yeah.
And so, what's the drawback? Is it removing the UV?
No, it's okay. It's removing the infrared, right? But that's a good point. Also, is that when you're indoors, you're not getting UV, and UV does a lot of good too. It makes UVB makes vitamin D, gives you a suntan, and I'm forgetting what, there's another health benefit of UVA. I cannot remember what it is, but UVA is also good.
UVA is the one that's dangerous to uh, get exposed to
No,
for melanoma and things, but in
that's
reasonable
UVC,
amounts.
isn't it?
Oh, um,
You, I know UVC is like highly dangerous. That's the one that they use to sterilize stuff in the hospital and stuff.
so the light experience, if we can do the best, we're going to get out there in the sunlight in the morning, and then during the workday, I guess try to obtain sources of natural light rather than strictly fluorescent artificial light, which are more intense. They're going to strain the eyes. It's been associated with macular degeneration, years and years of staring at screens.
Yep.
Or not so with being outdoors in the sun. But then when we get to sunset is when we really have to take massive corrective action if we want to stay healthy, huh?
Well, you want to, so if you're referring to indoor lighting, yeah, you don't want to have a bunch of stimulating light after sunset. But it's actually good to get evening sunshine after, around sunset. That those wavelengths are really healing. Um, as a general rule, what happens is over the course of the day is that the most blue is in the morning. And then as the day goes on, there's less and less blue. And that mirrors exactly what your melatonin is supposed to do, right?
Mm.
You're supposed to have very low melatonin in the morning when there's the most blue light. And then as the day progresses, there's less blue light and more melatonin.
Then it kind of tees us up for a graceful transition into a mellow evening and then falling asleep and having melatonin work its magic. And the listeners are probably aware that melatonin is the hormone that makes you feel sleepy and drowsy and lowers body temperature, lowers respiration, gets you ready for a good night's sleep. It's also a hugely important antioxidant. So it has a ton of other functions besides just making your eyelids feel heavy. But we are messing everything up with the high intensity indoor lights, especially after dark. So you want to talk about some strategies there to be more like dude with the orange bulbs and the salt lamps and the glasses.
Yeah. So during my work day, I do have a salt lamp like next to my desk, just to balance out the blue, just to have some red to balance out the blue. And then after sunset, so here, let me see if I can show you here. Here it's pretty dark out. It's not quite dark. It's 8 p.m. But I've already got my indoor red lights on. And these are 25 watt incandescent red bulbs that I got on Amazon. I can give Brad the link so that if people want it, they can get it. But they're just simple red bulbs. Those are incandescent, so if you touch those, they are hot.
Okay. So the incandescent is the recommendation.
Yeah.
So we want to go back to an infrared emitting bulb that's putting out an orangish, reddish, yellowish hue rather than the bright white,
Yeah.
aka blue light.
Yeah. So about 500 nanometers is the cutoff for affecting melatonin. And I forget where red starts. I think it's a little higher than that, but 550 is actually better. 550 is what a lot of the experts recommend. And if you get some of the glasses like Ra or Blue Blocks, those all block 550 and below.
Oh, right. The Juve light and the red light therapy devices are recommending that you go in this range of 650, somewhere around there, nanometers.
Right.
So that's why that's the therapeutic intensity of the red light. So when you said 550 or anything, blocking anything below that, that's the blue light that you want to
Right.
kind of do away with as soon as the sun sets.
Right. And I actually, like, a lot of people wear blue blockers at night, and I have some, and I do wear them occasionally, but I actually have my environment set up so that I don't have to have them. So I have the red lights. I can still read with the red light. I have a red light or a blue light filter that makes my screen look red or orange on the computer.
Right.
I have the same thing on my TV. So if I want to watch some TV before I go to bed, I have a filter on my TV that turns the screen orange.
What the heck? Is that an actual filter that mounts over the screen, or do you have some
No,
technology built into the screen?
no, it's a device. It's called Drift TV,
Oh, wow.
and it's just a little device that's, I don't know, it's about the size of 2 packs of cigarettes, maybe.
Good
And
analogy. Thank you.
yeah, I didn't know what else to say. And you plug it in between the video source and the TV, right? So if you've got a cable box or whatever, you get the HDMI cable coming out of your cable box, you plug it into this thing, and then you, on the other side, you plug another HDMI cable and plug that into your TV. And it has a timer, right? So you can set the timer so that it filters the blue starting at whatever time. I think I have mine set for 7 p.m. And you can also adjust how much blue you want to filter, right? So when I was married and my family would complain about this kind of stuff, I had it kind of mild, so it wasn't quite filtering so much. But now that I got my own place, it's just like you watch my TV at night, it's orange.
Well, the computer ones like Flux and Iris Tech, you can barely even notice them, and it's very pleasant. And when you compare back to a super high intensity regular emission, and with the Iris Tech software, they have some good informative videos where they talk about turning up you got to turn the brightness up all the way on your laptop or desktop screen, and then use their software to block blue light. Because if you turn the brightness down like a good citizen, where you're thinking that you're, having a more mellow light source coming off your laptop, what's happening is they're doing these rapid fire flickers of reducing the intensity of the light by flickering and doing something that's subconscious, hitting you with a very offensive light source, but you can't tell. It just seems like your screen's less bright and therefore good. So the instructions are, please turn your thing up all the way to maximum brightness and then activate the software. So it's interesting to kind of learn. And this stuff it's a pretty serious health offense, because if you disrupt melatonin at night, like you described in the morning, you're going to wake up and you're going to feel like crap because you didn't get a good night's sleep, and the serotonin's not kicking in because you've messed up the hormonal processes, the circadian functions.
Yeah, so as you well know from being a triathlete, if you're working out but you're not getting your sleep, you're not getting the benefit of the workout, right? You don't grow during the workout. You grow during the recovery from the workout. And if you're not getting good recovery, then you might as well not work out.
This is a funny one because I think we're so knowledgeable and informed now about the importance of sleep. I haven't spoken to anybody who is going to challenge any of the crazy assertions. If you go on for an hour, everyone's going to nod their head in general, right? But then in practical terms, what's happening is, even though we all know how important it is, I think we're making that devil's sacrifice at night, going for that dopamine hit in the case of good programming that we deservedly get to kick back and watch and maybe throw down some popcorn after such a busy, stressful, hardworking day, which is well-deserved and part of enjoying life. But it seems like we're constantly at war with our values and respecting the importance of sleep, and then how we actually execute.
Man, it is, I preach this stuff all the time, and I teach a online class where I teach people how to implement this stuff and more in their lives. And I would agree, like, even for me, sometimes getting to bed on time and getting the proper sleep, and I don't have any problem keeping the lights down and keeping my place red. I do that. But yeah, every once in a while, if I have friends over, or, I'm watching a TV show or something, yeah, or work these days, working from home, nobody wants to be that guy who proves to be dispensable because he's not getting enough done while he's working from home. Right.
Oh
So
boy, I never thought about that angle of the remote working where you got to prove yourself more than maybe when you're the friendly guy saying hello to everyone at work and being on good terms and everyone sees you. Now they're only seeing your work output, so it's like everyone's exposed. The glad handers in the workplace are now being exposed, huh?
I think I don't know if that happens that way, but I certainly feel like, uh, and I think there's a competition to it also, right? Because, I get an email at 10 o'clock at night from somebody. I'm like, oh crap, man, he's working until 10 o'clock at night. Oh, I don't want to be the only guy that's not working until 10 o'clock at night. So, I mean, there's a lot that plays into it, but point is, I find myself, up later than I should. And, it takes effort and dedication to actually implement this stuff into effective daily practice, for sure.
Yeah, I guess for me, the payoff comes in the morning because I really want to feel energetic and motivated and happy and in a good disposition in the morning. And so, after enough times where you make that trade in the evening and you feel like crap in the morning, I'm hoping that, continues to push me into having that strong discipline to know that whatever you're watching, especially nowadays, I mean, in the old days, your favorite show, David Letterman, comes on at 11 and he has a great guest on tonight. Jim Carrey's going to go crazy. And that's the only time you're ever going to get to see it. Now, come on, everybody can push a button and pick up where we left off the next night. So it's sort of easier than ever, even though maybe it's more tempting than ever. It's
Right.
easier than ever to stay on schedule and not miss out.
Yeah. For me, it's really the social aspects. I'm very extroverted, and I like to hang out with my friends and talk about health and wellness and whatever else. And it's easy for me to stay out a little bit too late with my friends. But with the quarantine, I haven't watched TV in years. There's like no shows that I actually watch, right? The only thing I really use TV for is sports. Um, but with the quarantine, I'm actually finding myself like, oh, somebody told me this Netflix show is good. I'm going to check that out. So I've watched a little bit more.
Oh, mercy. This is the first time I've really been an evening TV watcher in 20 years because I've been too tired, especially having kids and coaching sports and trying to squeeze things in different phases of life. And I enjoy it. I have a really discriminating taste, which I think is a great idea to, give something a chance. If it's not great or fantastic, there's so many other options you can move on. And
Totally.
I think there's a lot of interesting adjustments we've made to the high complexity of daily life that we had before, where now I think if we have a positive attitude, we can appreciate certain aspects of just having things more patterned and predictable, and perhaps perhaps some benefits. Of course, the tremendous cost and the destruction of the economy is heartbreaking, and so many people are suffering. But I'm wondering your reflections, like when we theoretically pull out of this someday, are we going to take some of the positive aspects of it and carry it forward?
I sure hope so. I mean, I know from my own personal experience, I've described the changes in my um, 1 hour breaks and stuff. which have been really great. I get to have midday sun, walking around my apartment building. I mean, that's all great. There are instances when I do feel like being in the office would be a little bit more productive. Got to collaborate on projects or whatever. But in a kind of a broader sense, another thing that's really happened is I think there's been a slight restoration of work-life balance. Like, everyone in my company, we're all working, we're all teleconferencing and collaborating online together and have online tools and whatnot. But there's been a real expectation that people are at home. They have to take care of their loved ones, their kids, their elderly parents, their invalid family member. Like everyone's got somebody that they need to take care of, and or other things in their life that they need to do. And so there's been like this whole sort of much more compassionate approach to what people are dealing with in their personal life, and an acceptance that, there are things that are more important than
business travel.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And so that part's been really nice. And then the flip side of that is, Joe has been taking care of his sick father during the day. And so he gets a lot of work done at night when his sick father's sleeping. And that's why he sends you emails at 11 p.m.
Yeah, I think that ability to have a little more control over your workflow is a positive for many people. I know some people say that they like the structure of jumping in the car, commuting, the familiarity of stopping at the Starbucks, getting your routine going. But I guess it depends on the personality. Like some people are probably really, clicking into that self-starting mode and that freedom to go out and do 35 push-ups every hour and all those kind of things that work for you that you said are frankly kind of difficult, even in a progressive workplace in Austin. It would probably seem a little weird if you had a kettlebell in the corner and you were grunting while people were typing away 12 feet away.
Yeah, although I will say, Verbo actually has 2 offices in Austin. And one of them's, we actually have 3 buildings. 2 of them are right next to each other. That's where I work. And then there's another one all the way across town. And I had a meeting there one time. And that place is actually a call center mostly. And I went in there one day and I noticed, like, upstairs on the balcony over off in the corner where there isn't a lot of traffic, there was some mats and some foam rollers and like it was like a little like rollout station in just right there in the middle of the office. So who knows, maybe my kettlebell won't be so out of place after all.
Yeah, you can take your chance when you return to work. You bring all that home energy. All right, dude, Spellings, we hit it hard, man. Thanks for covering some fun, interesting topics.
Yeah, thanks for having me. As always, it was a lot of fun.
We'll check back soon. We'll start stacking up the topics and keep in touch. Say hi to everybody in Austin.
I gotta make one plug. I gotta make one plug real quick.
Yeah, man.
So I mentioned the MTHFR and the homocysteine and all that from blue light. What really moved the needle in lowering my homocysteine was Brian Johnson's Ancestral Supplements beef liver. It's the only thing that moves the needle for me on the homocysteine.
The most nutrient dense, probably the most nutrient dense supplement on the whole planet.
Yep.
And we've been talking about Mofo, which got so popular it sold out as soon as it was released, but it's coming back soon. And that chance for male optimization and to nourish those reproductive organs and your entire sexual function with the exact nutrients that are needed is really exciting to me. So I'm glad you mentioned that. We're big fans. And
well, okay, I'm gonna plug Mofo also, because I've done 2 bottles. And I can tell a difference. I can definitely tell a difference in, my male reproductive areas. It makes a difference.
I'm also a big fan of the collagen supplementation, which I'm kind of late to the bandwagon, but Primal Collagen, of course, sponsoring the show, and I've sat on the sidelines and even read the scripts or touted it, but looking more into the research for the most recent book I did with this, and he's a huge fan of collagen. I mean, he started the category with one of the first products, and there's some pretty good rationale to take 30 grams a day for the rest of your life, because it's so difficult to obtain unless you're eating a bunch of gristle and drinking mugs of bone broth every single day. And it has such broad application in the body, as Dr. Kate Shanahan details very well in her books, that, skin, hair, nails, connective tissue, and the health of your connective tissue being directly correlated with longevity. Because when that stuff falls apart, then you can't exercise, you can't put the energy out, you start to get a loss of muscle mass, sarcopenia, which is one of the huge factors in accelerated demise, losing your balance, falling, the number one cause of accident and death in Americans over age 65. So that's high on my supplement list too right now.
All right, one more last plug.
Yeah, we're on the supplement part of the show, people.
Yeah, so I think I told you, did I tell you I broke my leg in February?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay, so
and it's already healed, he says.
Oh, I've been. I was running within 4 weeks, but
wow.
It was on a ski trip, and I took this fall where my knee got all twisted up, and I actually heard a pop.
Oof.
And I thought for sure I tore my ACL. Right, my knee was all twisted, and I thought, oh man, and I've heard, like, when that happens, you hear a pop. And I thought, oh, I know, I heard that pop. I bet I tore something. And turns out I had I forget what they call it, but it's actually where the tendons pull so hard on the bone that the bone breaks. So,
woof.
So the point is that the collagen I've been taking, the Primal Kitchen collagen that I've been taking, I think made a difference. That instead of tearing that soft tissue, I broke a bone instead, which is much easier to heal.
Right. You'd rather have that. Same with the ankles. I remember turning my ankle, getting taken out in 8th grade basketball scrimmage. And no joke, it took a year for that thing to get back to, near normal. And of course, a bone would have been, 6 weeks in a boot, and then it's all gone. So, all right, good plug. We're getting everybody focused. Thanks, dude Spellings.
Thank you, man.